Hello, I'm Ajit Nair from Nair's Aviation Ground School. This is the sixth video in a new series of educational aviation videos for the aspiring pilot. In a recent video, we had discussed the importance of the runway. You might have noticed that runways have numerous markings on them. These markings have to be decoded to understand the information that is being provided to the pilots by the specific runways. This video is about runway markings. Runway markings provide information about the runway to the pilots. Understanding these markings will ensure that the pilot does not make any errors while preparing to take off, land, or taxi to or from the runway. Depending on the airport, the runway might contain anywhere from 2 to 10 or more markings. Runways at small airports usually only have the runway number and a center line. The center line, which looks almost exactly the same as the lane markings on a highway, splits the runway into two equal parts. This provides the pilot with a reference as to where to position the airplane on the runway. The plane should be on the center line at all times to ensure that the aircraft does not hit anything on either side of the runway. In larger airplanes, the wings can span many hundred feet, so making sure the airplane is on the center line is very important. Usually, one dash segment of the center line is 120 feet long, and the space between dashes is around 80 feet. On larger runways, there is usually two large white blocks about 1,000 feet from the end of the runway. This is the runway aiming point. The aiming point provides a reference as to where to aim the nose of the aircraft while the pilot is coming in for a landing. In addition to the runway aiming points, there are thin white lines on either side of the center line. These lines are spaced about 500 feet apart. These are the touchdown zone markings. These markings provide references as to where to touch down the aircraft when coming in for a landing. Sometimes, when the area around the runway is similar in color to the runway or is obscured, runway side stripes markings are used. These unbroken white lines mark the edges of the runway on both sides. The runway threshold markings tell the pilot where they can start landing on the runway. These threshold markings usually consist of 8 longitudinal lines, 4 on each side of the center line. Sometimes, the threshold markings are used to identify the width of the runway. In this case, there can be between 4 to 16 longitudinal lines. 4 stripes would indicate a runway that is 60 feet wide, while 6 stripes indicates a runway that is 75 feet wide. 8 stripes mean that the runway is 100 feet wide, while 12 stripes represents a runway that is 150 feet wide. 16 stripes would mean that the runway is 200 feet wide. Sometimes, you might have seen arrows on the end of the runway. These arrows indicate a displaced threshold. This means that while an airplane can taxi and take off from the arrows, aircraft that are landing need to touch down after the arrows. Displaced thresholds are used to indicate that there might be construction going on at the end of the runway, or that there are obstructions which could cause an accident if the airplane lands there. The displaced threshold reduces the length of the available runway for landing. On runways which are used by large aircraft, you might see yellow chevrons at the end of the runway. This area is used as a blast pad. The blast pad exists so that blasts from jets and propellers can safely dissipate. This blast can be very forceful, so the blast pad is needed to ensure that other aircraft and airport equipment are not damaged when engines are fully powered before a takeoff. The markings on a runway can seem strange and mysterious. The markings are used to inform the pilot of runway characteristics, which improves safety. Certain markings are used to provide safety information to the pilots, such as the display's threshold and blast pad markings. Understanding runway markings can help the pilot be prepared when taking off or coming in for a landing. Runway markings are necessary knowledge for the pilot, especially when using an unfamiliar airport. For more information, please contact us at liftanddrag@gmail.com and visit our website at nyersaviation.webnode.com. Thank you. Safe flying.